My family's who I do it for. I thank God every day. Blast off, take off, lift off, take off. Blue sky, G5 new ride, turbo. Tell the gang I'm on the way. I'm out the USA. Blast off, take off, lift off, take off. Blue sky, G5 new ride, turbo. Tell the gang I'm on the way. I'm out the USA.
Take off.
I'm out the USA. I'm out the USA.
I'm the executive director of Boys to Men of Greater Phoenix. We're a youth mentoring organization, and we work with boys 13 to 17. And we're an independent 501c3 nonprofit based here in Arizona, and we're affiliated with Boys to Men USA. The organization started 22 years ago in San Diego, and what's really kind of cool is the boys we deal with, they'll see their grades improve, but we're not a tutoring organization, we're not an academic organization.
Wow.
The boys will also see their behavioral issues will be reduced. We don't coach, we don't fix, we don't rescue, we don't tell them what to do. So we achieve that by basically being men in their lives that have their back.
Yeah.
So it started 22 years ago in San Diego with a bunch of men saying, man, these kids are getting in trouble, we gotta do something. A bunch of men started doing it. It started out as a rite of passage. It's a weekend transformation. And though the weekend was very transformational, it wasn't, we couldn't keep the kids. You may never see them again. So from an impact standpoint, you know, getting one big wham doesn't do it. It's over time.
Right.
So we would have, so the rite of passage weekends is how it got started. We also do what we call adventure groups, which is just meeting once or twice a month. Men and boys coming together just to have fun, throw football around, go hike and do whatever.
Love that.
Same situation. Boys get mentoring and connection with good solid men and other boys. They start to build kind of a tribe, but it's not sustainable.
Right.
So that started 22 years ago. 10 years ago, the guys in San Diego said, all right, rather than waiting for the boys to come to us, we got to go where the boys are.
Right.
Then it became a site-based or school-based program. So starting in middle school, 7th grade, you go into the middle schools. There's usually 3 men that are trained and background checked that go into the schools. They'll give us anywhere from 10 to 15 kids, and the schools are the ones that designate who the kids are. We don't make that call. It's usually they're struggling with grades, they're struggling with behavioral issues. Sometimes maybe their behavior and grades are okay, but the school knows that there's a tough environment at home with incarceration or drug addiction or violence, and so they just know, hey, this kid needs support. So the school gives us an hour a week, and we basically sit in a circle. A lot of mentoring organizations that are out there are kind of top down. You know, I burn my hand on the stove, so let me teach you so you don't burn your hand on the stove. We do, rather than face to face, we do shoulder to shoulder. We sit with the boys in a circle and we tell the boys, we're running the group, but this is your group and we're no different than you are. So there's no authority here.
Right.
Is the score that is that something that's kind of given out to everyone, or is there like some geared towards specific people?
We don't ever have the boys take it. Schools don't ever have boys take it, but it's just something in the back of your head to understand the risk factors depending on, because a lot of, you know, especially from a school standpoint, teachers usually get, counselors usually will understand what's going on in the kid's life, and then that's when they can start adding up, okay, you know, yeah, they got this one, they got this one, they got this one. So then they start saying, okay, the more the trauma factors, the much more the recovery time, or the other, you know, how long it's going to take them to kind of find balance in their life. It's just weird that you know, I don't know the specifics of it, but it's weight gain and obesity is one of them. I think it's also dementia is another one. There's a lot of different physical, mental, emotional problems that people experience the higher their ACEs score.
Me and the gang out in Tokyo. taking sips to the brain. My family's who I do it for. I thank God every day. Blast off, take off, lift off, take off. Blue sky, D5 new ride, turbo. Tell the gang I'm on the way. I'm out the USA.
Hi, my name is Pete Chavez. I'm the founder of Chavez Boxing. Actually we changed it now. It's the Chavez Youth and Community Foundation, and I'm also the owner of Chavez Boxing Gym. And my foundation, as far as a 501c3, we've been one for a little over a decade now. And the boxing, like having my own with the gym and all that, I've been doing that for probably about 12 years now.
So what actually made you like start doing this here specifically, like running like a sort of like a youth organization like this?
Everything like I hate to say like it fell into place because it did, and like I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason, you know. When I was doing the personal training and then working, you know, like part-time nights, because I was working in the grocery industry, and then I was a manager, but I was working part-time and then doing the personal training and trying to start my gym. And little by little, once we moved to the Van Buren one, like the Streets of Destiny Church, you know that area, really bad ghetto stuff. So we started with a lot of kids there, and my son used to bring a lot of his friends, other kids that needed it, and we would train them for free, even though like I was broke and struggling and stuff like that. But you know, we wanted to help them, and when I knew, okay, this kid needs it, he's from the hood, we're not, you know. They need us to stay out of trouble. They need mentors, so it started from there.
Is that something from like how you personally grew up, like that you wanted to like help like kids and
because most people that do, you know, like when they do nonprofits or other things, it's something that's affected their life personally. So that's exactly what I did, because I grew up, you know, by 35th and Van Buren, like McDowell, Valletta, you know, Butler, Isaac, all that. So I grew up basically without a dad around and stuff, and all that stuff had gangs, and I wasn't a bad kid, but that's all I knew. That's always my area and stuff like that. So knowing exactly how that was like a big thing to me, and I wanted to, you know, be a mentor, help these kids out and stuff, so they wouldn't have to go through the same thing or live the life I did. Right.
When a kid grows up without a father, you know, what are some disadvantages that leads to, like sort of mentally, how they act and stuff like that? You touch on it like in, you know, they might turn to gangs or something like within street life. But is there any? Do you have any feelings on that? On what like specifically definitely. A father and specifically on young men?
Yeah. Even though I was better off with my dad, not my life. There's a huge, because like a lot of the things that I had to learn on my own, or learn, you know, like doing wrong things and stuff like that, and not having a mentor, not somebody, you know, teaching you right from wrong, what it is, you know, to be a man, things like that. It really affected me. So I know that's what I try to do with my kids. Like a lot of them, they call me dad, you know, especially the girls, they call me dad. So they see me as a father figure, you know, which I try to be, to give them that, you know, the advice, the love, encouragement, right from wrong, you know, discipline, and everything. Like I tell everybody, you can't use that for an excuse. I use that with my kids all the time. Like, well, I didn't have a dad. I grew up in the hood, this and that. I'm like, everything I learned from my dad. I go, not in a good way, but in a bad way. I learned how to be a good father with my dad not being around, you know. I learned, like, so many things, like I said, and it was all, like, not because he was a good father. He showed me this, but because I'm like, I don't want to be like that. I'm never going to abandon my kids. I'm never going to be, you know, abusive to my children. All these things that he did, you know, abandoning us, I'm like, I'll never be like that. So it helped me in that way, you know, like, so that's how I was encouraging my kids, don't use that for an excuse, your environment, or saying that your dad wasn't there, you know. So absolutely.
How do you think boxing specifically, and boxing like a boxing gym and the environment and as a sport in general, like what does that do to sort of replace what you just talked about
because like it helped me. I know how it affected me and helped me, so I use that the same way, and I know that's how it helps the kids. Because when I hated my childhood, you know, I only stayed with my dad, I think, for like a 2 period of my life. That was it. And then, like I said, I hated my environment. I hated my life. I hated coming home. So boxing like saved me. I could have been more running around gangs, and I would see it constantly. And then that became my family. And then Any kid, even adults, they need something. They need, whether it's sports, whether it's music, whatever it is, they need that. And so that's what literally like saved me, because there was like maybe 7 guys out of my gym that had potential to turn pro or good. 5 of them are dead. Only me and one other one made it out of there alive.
Yeah.
I know it's doing the same thing with the kids. They need a safe place. They need a haven. They need a place to call home.
Yeah.
They can come in even the days they don't practice. And so that's what helped me a lot. Was having that, having my team, having my family. That was my other. That was like my real family, just like we are here, and just having goals and.
Having goals, you said?
Yeah, having goals. Like I had like a lot of goals, turning pro. And just even before I turned pro, I want to win Golden Gloves. I want to win, Gene Lewis, this and that. So it's it takes all that pain away, because you have goals, you have something positive, you have your family, And my coach was never really encouraging the loving type or this or that. So I try to be that way with my kids and encourage them, be loving, be like a father figure. So I think it helps them that much more. Because even people that, like, there's some, that never going to be fighters, even though they want to really bad and this and that. Of course, we will still take them. I'll still get them to be the best they can if they want to compete, And I've had fighters like that. Like one kid, I love to death, and he could never be a good fighter, but I didn't try to stop him from doing it, There's one loss after the other, and he would fall apart in the ring, but I'm like, hey, this is happy, it's saving him, it's keeping him, out of trouble doing this and that, so I was more than happy.
So if a little boy goes to a mentorship program, obviously it's not the ideal solution because they don't have a father in the household, but do you think it's like a solution that can partly help them out?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think mentorship programs are excellent. Things like Valley Big Brother, absolutely good programs. Sometimes there are mentorship programs like through police departments. My husband participated in that. And the kids that he helped, it was amazing. He was able to take kids who were in gangs, because he was assigned to a school that had the highest gang rate in Phoenix. And he got them on gangs. That was interesting, because once he started at this school, every day he'd go out in the morning and he would greet people. He'd say, good morning, good morning. And a lot of these gang members would just walk by and kind of ignore him. And he would take them aside, never in front of other people, but he would take them aside and say, when somebody greets you and says good morning and puts out their hand, you shake it. That's common courtesy. This is something you need to learn. And before long, these little gangbangers were walking in, they were shaking his hand. Then he discovered at his school there was an increase in fights on the playground. Why was there an increase in fights? He took aside one of these kids, Johnny, why are all these kids fighting? You don't know, Officer Bustamante? No. You showed us that there's a better way, and we want to get jumped out of the gang. And the only way you can get out of the gang is to be beaten up. We want to be beaten up on the schoolyard because you're there to protect us. And so the fight ends up shorter. You look at what these kids, he made an impact on these children's lives. Now, luckily for him, it was like, again, a daily impact. And having a monthly impact is better than nothing. He would go into, for example, he would go into their home ec room, whatever they would call their family life resources room during class. And one day he went in there to iron his shirt because he had to go to court. And he likes his shirts ironed, and his shirt had gotten wrinkled. So he went in and these boys walked up to him, you're ironing? Men iron? He said, oh yeah, I like my shirt to look really nice. But it's these kinds of things we don't even realize. These are these little kinds of parts of our culture, parts of what's important for growing up, that we're teaching children much more than just sit down and let me tell you how to be a man. So mentoring programs are excellent.
All right. So I was talking about Steve, and how I learned that that it's important to not build too close of a relationship, and that within my job that I was kind of egotistical in thinking that I could sort of be like a mentor, like teacher, and telling them, no, this is the way, this is how you do things and stuff like that. Where I learned from Steve is that you just they got all these adults saying the same thing to them, and you're just essentially just adding on to that.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing I took away from it is to be essentially just shut up and listen.
Right.
And he also gave us a few acronyms like wait, like why am I talking right now? Like ask yourself that, and what is the purpose behind that? So that was the biggest thing I took away from that specifically was how I could personally fit that role better for someone, especially with someone with that experience. So yeah.
So why is it important for someone like you to be a mentor?
Good questions.
It's important for representation as a young black man, that there are a lot of black boys that don't have a father figure, and it's very important that they see that that there is a role model that may look like me, that may have had the same past experiences as me, who I can look up to, who I can ask questions, who I can like vent with, and things like that. So I feel like personally for me that when I see like young black boys who don't have like a father, I feel like it's my duty to kind of like help them in any way possible. So.
And why was it important for you to have mentorship?
So yeah, that connects kind of perfectly with what you're saying, because and through this whole process, like I grew up in boxing gyms, and for me, I was kind of a kid that was kind of sort of like broken home and just like no real direction, and I was just kind of especially when you're young, Steve mentioned this, your mind is like a mushy, still you're still open to a lot of things. So I could see looking back in hindsight where without certain things in place I could have made bad decisions and ended up in the spot where I'm not right now. So in boxing gyms I found mentors, like you said, that looked like me, and some didn't look like me. Some it was beyond like sort of like a racial thing, but a lot of these older guys, they kind of grew up in the projects or whatever, and I would listen to them. My grandfather who was raising me, was a police officer, much older than me. There's like a 50-year difference between us. He could tell me something, and then one of these people that I looked up to in the gym, they could tell me the same exact thing, and I'd listen to them, because it's just as you're a kid, you're kind of that's just how you are, and I think it definitely makes a way bigger impact on you for sure when you have that sort of mentor that looks like you and you can relate to better.